Good evening, Bahrain. I'm Bernadette from Gulf Brands International, and this is Wine Online Wednesday. We have now reached episode 10, and it's time for some California dreaming. So tonight we've got 3 wines from one winery from California, a little bit inland, just about an hour away from San Francisco. And the winery is called Toasted Head. So if we look at the Californian area north of San Francisco, we're looking at the Central Valley, is the big area there for growing wine, and especially Yolo County, as it's called. In there, one of the regions is Dunnigan Hills, and that's where you find the Toasted Head Winery and their vineyards. So wine in California originally started off with the gold rush. So as that started in the 1850s, winemaking started. It continued to some degree up until the 1920s when Prohibition kicked in, and that kind of killed the winemaking industry. So it took quite some years to come back. But now we have it today, one of the biggest wine producers in the world, and let's get into some California wine. So Toasted Head is quite an interesting wine because it focuses on oak-aged wines. They don't do any fruit-only driven wines. And the result is an amazing full body and fantastic flavours. So the big tool that you need when you're going to make these wines is oak barrels. So how do they make an oak barrel? Let's have a look. So as you can see, there's a lot of effort goes into making those barrels, and all the charring inside is bound to inflict quite some flavours on the wine itself. So let's see how it performs. We're going to start with Chardonnay, the big grape in California, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with glasses today. So as I've explained, we're expecting this to be a big full-on monster of a Chardonnay, nothing like a nice, delicate, elegant Chablis from the north of France. So we're going to just start with a wine glass for gnomes. So here we go. We're just going to see if we can smell it. Yes, I can smell, I can smell some lemon. I feel like an aardvark here trying to suck up the aromas from the wine, because this little tiny glass has got everything closed in. So this is not working. We need to go up a step. You're out, mate. So, oh, now we can see the colour. Oh, you're talking, you know, for a big wine, it's got an almost transparent, lovely, gentle golden hue. Ooh. Butter, toast, butterscotch. Oh, I'm looking forward to this. We'll just have a sip. Let's get started. That completely fills the mouth with gorgeous caramelly butterscotch shortbread. Oh, lovely flavours. And the flavour goes on and on. But I think there's something still missing. We're going to go large again. Now this is the typical glass that you need for an oak Chardonnay. As you can see, it's almost goldfish bowl shaped. So, okay, there we go. I can get rid of that. And we think we need some more in here. Now, let's start again. Look at how that goes round and round, how the air goes into it. This is called chasing the Chardonnay. So we get it round and round. Wow, what a difference to the closed glass. Oh, that the aromas develop, come up, and then they're just taken up. What development. The flavour is completely mouth-filling now. There's actually, yeah, I got it on the palate, but I missed it on the nose. There's, because this is 14% alcohol, there's actually a hint of whiskey, probably from the high alcohol. A sweet whiskey. Probably, you know, you're programmed to think if it's been in oak barrels, you think of whiskey aging in oak barrels. So this high alcohol aroma, it's a very pleasant whiskey aroma. Just a hint. It reminds me of toasted marshmallows. Wow. This is just huge flavour in here. And Chardonnay is not typically sweet grape as such. There's a little hint of sweetness, and that's because 3% of the wine is Viognier. So some little floral aromatics have been whacked by the oak aromas coming out of this, but there's just that little delicate hint of sweetness. This wine is fermented sur lie, meaning all the yeasts and everything as the wine is fermented is left in the wine. It's not drained off while the wine develops. It goes into oak barrels and it develops there for 8 months. During that time, in the winery, they hand stir the barrels to keep all the yeast particles circulating among the wine. This gives rise to another little secondary fermentation, which gives this gorgeous creaminess. There's no sharp edges in this wine. Oh, it's gorgeous. This is something you either love it or hate it. If you like big, full-bodied wines, then this is perfect. If you like if you're a Chablis fan, if you like a very light, delicate Gavi, you might not like this. I think this is probably a Marmite wine. You either love it or hate it. Wow. Okay. Shall we try some red? So we have here Cabernet. Okay, and again this time let's. This is the normal glass we've been using. Let's go large. As you can see, again we've got a much bigger glass here, which will allow for a lot more swirling and development. So this is Cabernet, and it's 90% Cabernet, but it's also got 10% of Petit Verdot. Now this is typically a grape from Bordeaux. It's often used in the blends within Bordeaux with Cabernet, with Merlot, just usually a small proportion. It brings in some tannin support and a hint of spice. The grape itself ripens later than Cabernet, so it's easier to bring some balance into the wine, that they have 2 harvests. So let's get into it. Oh, now for a wine that has been through all those oaky barrels, it's remarkably fruity. It's got gorgeous signature fruits here of the Cabernet coming through, and some luscious plums. You know, there's not getting anything oaky on the nose. It could be as well that when the grapes were picked, these wines went through, it's called a cold soak, where the grapes are crushed slightly and then they're chilled down for about 24 hours. And that's to extract as much flavour, fruit flavour as possible from the must before the fermentation starts. And I think that's why the nose is so fruit forward coming up here. So it spends some time in steel, about a few 10 days or so in steel, and then into oak, where it's going to spend a whole year in oak. Let's taste. Juicy, fresh ripe fruit, forest fruits. Wow. But there's a hint of sweet spice like vanilla. Vanilla typically is a sign of coming from the oak, but it's very soft here, and I think it's more like vanilla that you'd find in a gatto. So you could almost imagine a lovely fresh fruit gatto with a vanilla sponge or something like that, but a very pure vanilla, just a hint. Very soft tannins. My goodness. This is vintage 14. It's a very interesting wine. Given the 12-month aging with such toasted barrels, you would expect a little bit more hardness coming through here, but it has just developed beautifully. And it's just starting to go brown at the edges. This is drinking just perfectly right now. Oh, lovely. Right, let's move on to our last red, and this is called the Untamed Red, which is a rather unusual name for a wine. So let's see. It's actually a blend. The principal grape in here is Syrah, which does very well in the Central Valley. So we've got about 55-60% Syrah. We've also got some Petit Verdot, which is giving it, as we just said, a bit of spice, a bit of tannin. But we've also got a little interesting grape in here called Petit Syrah. Now, it's not just like half a bunch of Syrah. It's actually a grape in its own right. It was invented by Dr. François Durif in France. And it's actually a cross between Syrah, real Syrah, and a now practically extinct French grape called Pèlersin. So in most of the world it's called Petit Syrah. In Australia it's called Durif, because that was the name of the doctor who developed it. And it does very well down there. Petit Syrah will give you full, big wine with a very deep colour, and with some tannin support. So let's have a look. Yep, it's starting to show its age as well, but it's still a lovely brick red colour. Oh, blueberries, fresh blueberries, but in this case there's some spice coming through from the oak aging that there wasn't in the Cabernet. Part of the Petit Syrah contribution to wine is that it's full of these anthocyanins, which are antioxidants, which are now considered to be very healthy for you. This is not a recommendation from me that you should drink this purely to get antioxidants. I suggest you eat lots of vegetables first. So let's get on to Now the fruits are oaked here, but there's a soft spice. So we had some vanilla spice going on here. Here we've got nutmeg, cinnamon, warm spices, but very gentle, and the tannins are very gentle, very sweet. Palate finishes beautifully. Wow, these wines are quite something. If you like full-bodied wines, they will suit you down to the ground, because even if you're not sure whether you like them or not, try them, because the tannins have been so softened that they just glide. They are so velvety, they are so elegant. It's the best way to describe it. So there you have Toasted Head. And I forgot to mention, we've got some rather dramatic labels here, and actually even if you look at the corks, I haven't seen this for a long time, they don't have a capsule, the bottles. You have the cork in the bottle, and they just have a little disc of wax on top, which is rather charming. And people aren't doing it anymore. I don't know why, because I presume that it's environmentally more friendly. I presume wax is recyclable, don't quote me on it. And we can see here in the front label there's a rather large bear who looks pretty angry because he's breathing fire. Now, I asked if this had some significance, and the winery told me that it related to a certain poem about sitting around a campfire, looking at the stones from whence bears will arise. And I thought that really didn't mean anything for me. And I think this bear deserves better. So I think he deserves a name. So I think what we'll do tonight is suggest a name for this bear. I'm not sure whether he's it looks a bit like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, or he's more of a bear with a sore throat than a bear with a sore head. Suggest a name for him, tell me why, and we'll pick a winner, and they'll win a set of their own Toasted Head wine to enjoy at home. So I hope you've enjoyed that little trip to Toasted Head and some really big wines. So I think I'm going to start all over again. Cheers.